welcome to day 4 of Can Month! Today's video is about Anne-Marie Macdonald and 2 of her novels. The first book that I'm going to be talking about is Fall on Your Knees, which is hefty. They both are, actually. This book is a family saga beginning at the beginning of the 20th century that goes from World War I-ish to about the 1920s. This book is set in New York City and Cape Breton Island on the east coast of Canada. The family consists of the father and his child bride Materia, who's from Lebanon, and their 4 daughters. The first daughter is Kathleen, who is the lightest of them all and can pass for white. And she's put on such a pedestal within the family that it's almost like her and her father are part of their own subgroup within the rest of the family that's separate or on a different level from everyone else. And there's Frances, who is the troublemaker, who is wild and rebellious and just does her own thing. Then there's Mercedes, who I think actually might be older than Frances, who is the really Catholic one. So she is very religious and pious, and she tries to be good and to take care of everyone, even though she sees that everyone around her is going down the wrong path. And then there's Lily, who is the adored baby of the family, and also especially because she is an invalid. Frances and Mercedes spend a lot of time caring and being with Lily. This book is such an intense family saga because almost every character has such a rich plot line of their own. The characters with the 2 strongest plot lines and the more central characters are definitely Kathleen, especially because she's the one who goes off to New York because she is training as an opera singer and her father sends her there to get better training. She goes through the process of being taught by one of the greatest opera teachers ever, and he basically breaks down her voice to bring her up. Frances has her own similarly dark but different thing going on back in Cape Breton with the rest of her family that I don't want to explain. So this book definitely touches on a lot of really dark subjects. There's sexual violence within and outside of the family and a lot of other disturbing stuff that happens. It also touches on a lot of racial strife as well as lesbianism, which is a common theme in all of Anne-Marie Macdonald's books because she's a lesbian. I can appreciate this book an enormous amount and the writing is fantastic, but I didn't feel like I could really connect with the story because even though it's following all the different characters and perspectives, I always felt slightly kept at a distance when I was reading it. And I'm not sure if that was just me as a reader in not feeling like I made a connection or if that was actually something purposefully done in the writing. The next book I'm going to be talking about is The Way the Crow Flies, which is the most haunting book I have ever read. This one is set in the 1960s at an Air Force base in Ontario, and it's about Madeleine McCarthy and her family. There's her little brother, there's her father Jack, who's in the Air Force, and then there's her mother, who is a Acadian named Mimi, who is a nurse, and that's how her parents met. This book is so sinister because you have this just nuclear family set up living on an Air Force base. A lot of it is about like children playing outside in the grass in the sun, but the story is so unhinged beneath the surface. This is a community of military families who've had to move around a lot, and obviously the father is in the military and all the women are generally just housewives. And whenever the story follows Mimi, the mother in this family, and she's kind of talking about, it's hard to really describe, but basically how the women in these families just fell apart. And we're experiencing a lot of depression and other mental health stuff. A lot of it seeming to come from situational factors. So not only do we have like the unhinging of housewives collectively in this community, we also have the underlying threat of nuclear annihilation present at all times because this is happening during the Cold War. So these 2 huge factors of insecurity are underlying the facade of what everyone's projecting at the like backyard barbecues. This story does utilize the multiple perspectives, and you do get chapters from both the parents and you see what's happening with the little brother, but it is mostly from Madeline's, and she is a really interesting narrator. There is a lot of dark stuff that happens in this book. There is pedophilia and child sexual assault, and there is a murder of a little girl who was one of Madeline's classmates, and a large portion of the story is centered around the investigation, the trial, and the sentencing of that murder. The book does follow Madeline throughout her life, mostly kind of jumping to about 20 years later when she is moved away and doing her own thing, and she's reconciling what happened with the murder, and she ends up finding the truth of what actually happened. Another theme of this book is lesbianism, and it also talks about abusive relationships in the queer community, which is a huge problem that also doesn't get talked enough about. Of the two, this is the one that I would recommend because it's just incredible, but please know that there is very disturbing things that happen in the book, so if you do not want to read that, please do not read this book. You will not enjoy it. I didn't know this, but she released a new book like last year. How did I not know that? And it's coming out on paperback soon, so I'm gonna jump on that. It seems like it's gonna be less dark and disturbing, which would be nice because I don't actually know if I could go through reading one of those books again. So maybe start there actually, but who knows, it could be just as bad.